Okay, so right now what we're going to do is we are going to take the thumbnail that we did, the one that we chose for the still life that we have in front of us, and we are going to transfer the thumbnail onto the larger 9 by 12. So the thumbnail was 3 by 4. I made a thumbnail that's smaller than that. Just a quick example of the thumbnail. And I even adjusted the edges of it so that I can include more of the teapot, maybe take out less of the flower pot. So I'm going to then draw that on here, and then we're going to do a cross contour. But the first thing I want to do, instead of looking at the still life again and looking at it through my viewfinder again and then drawing it all over again, I want to refer to my thumbnail. So I'll be drawing from the thumbnail, and then I'll adjust based on the actual still life. And the reason for that is normally when you get a thumbnail approved, you've done a thumbnail, you call me over for your composition, I say, yeah, that's good, and then you start over, you end up making a completely different composition, right? So we want to make sure that we get the same composition. And remember, composition has to do with how the objects are filling the page, filling the rectangle. And you want to try to get a visual balance, right? A balance of visual weight. That's what we're looking for. And in this composition I have now, I'm balancing out the weight over on this side with the weight over on that side of the flower pot. So I'm going to start off, and I'm going to draw, looking at my actual thumbnail here, drawing the basic form, just keeping it light. Because you can always get darker. And things like this, where I've got the flower pot that isn't going to be contained, right, within this, it's going to be cropped. So I still want to draw the whole thing, because you need to feel the ellipse as you're drawing, as we talked about when we did our cylinder drawing the other day. There's a handle over here somewhere. Pomegranate, and there's the apple, and there's the pear gourd that is coming off over here that's getting cropped out by the edge of my frame, okay? So now I've got the objects on there, okay? And I think they're the right size and right proportion, but I don't know that. I won't know that until I measure with my stick. Now, using the viewfinder that we had talked about before, the viewfinder doesn't help for proportion. Viewfinder only helps getting a composition. If you want to make sure that you have the proportion correct, then you have to use the stick, and you're going to have to measure and compare, okay? And so things that are closer to me, which is, the apple is a small object, but the apple, when I measure it, so I'm extending my elbow out, and I am getting the point of my stick at the top of the apple and my thumb at the bottom. So this is the apple here. So this is what I'm seeing when I'm looking at the still life, the point at the top of the apple, my thumb there at the bottom. And I get a unit of measurement, and then I compare it to the actual teapot. And when I do that, I see that the rim of the teapot, which is about here, there's a little ridge on it. From the bottom of the teapot to that ridge, that's how big that apple is. So the apple needs to be that size. So that's how I know my proportions are correct. Other things I can do is I can get a horizontal axis, okay? So we talked about the vertical axis before, and I want to see where the back of the flower pot is going to be in relation to the teapot, and I see that the back of the flower pot is about here. So I've got that in the right spot, and then also the bottom of the flower pot and where that passes through the apple. So I have all these reference points. So I'm sighting using this stick to figure out where everything needs to be. So I've got it nice and light on there, and then we're going to use the cross contours that we talked about before. So the cross contours that we did when we were using the cylinder and the organic object. So you already did a cross contour of a geometric object, so in this case like the teapot or the flower pot, and you did a cross contour of the natural or organic object when you did your fruit, right? So you don't have anything on this model scan that is not one of those things. So you already know how to do cross contours on both of those things, so it shouldn't be hard. You should be able to get this right. So I'm looking now at my teapot lid, and I actually drew probably too much of that top surface, and then the handle of it is going to come up beyond the top of my frame. Still want to draw it though. And then I have here the lid. Here's the opening, here's that ridge. And then here we're going to get the actual handle. So the handle is going to follow right along across contour. A little bit of the top there. A little bit of the side on this side. A little bit of the top on that side. Outside edge of the teapot's about here. Not seeing that part of the teapot, so that's getting covered up. Okay. I think my spout is actually going to go off the edge there, but it would end up being about here, I reckon. No, that's a little far over, probably about there. I'm getting to the pomegranate. And so right now we're just doing the outside contours, not the inside contours yet, not the cross contours. This actually should be over further. Right about there. Here's my apple. The pear-shaped gourd in the foreground is getting cropped out, so all I see is that much of it. But I am going to want to see the whole thing, okay, when I'm doing the cross contours. And then behind over here, there's another pomegranate. Most of that's going to get covered up, and I think that's all I see. And now I'm going to get the flower pot. So I'm changing that ellipse. I'm making it a little bit wider now. Okay, now we're ready for the cross contours. There is the brown paper. The brown paper is going to come about to there. Okay, so the cross contours for the teapot. We're going to start off at the top. It's going to come around, come around like that, and then down, and then in, and then straight down, and then around like that. Let's darken up on the outside contour a little bit so you can see that a little bit better. And remember, just like when we did the cross contour drawing of your cylinder or the fruit, that if you have to, go over and touch the object. Because we're tracing sort of the feel of it. And then as we come down closer to the center, things start to straighten out a little bit. In and around that. You just need enough of these to establish form. You don't need to go crazy. But you can have some coming around this way as well. And then these on the inside, so I have a ridge that comes along the top here, so we're going to hit that, and then it's going to get it straighter, and then it's going to hit that again, and then it's going to come down around like this. And this has got to be slightly less curved than that. And here my ridge isn't in the right spot there. Still not in the right spot. And then as we come down, cross contours coming this way, remember they get more curved the lower they go, further from the eye level they go. Should probably have a couple more in the middle. So these get less curved toward the center. This is my ridge. So on the handle, see a little bit of the, so this is the side. You see the top of it there. So we're going to come around here, and then there's the bottom there. And coming at the top, side like that, side like that. So a little bit of the top around here. Now in this drawing, it's not as important that you are clean. And if you need to make erasures and things like that, that's fine, because you're going to be tracing this, right? So that we can then do the value drawing on top. This is the pomegranate that's sort of invisible. It's getting, top of it's there. Then this is the spout coming around like that. I do see a little bit of this part. So if I want, I can have that there, and I can bring one down maybe this way. The pomegranates are going to be a little bit more angular, so it's not going to be like the apple, which is going to be really, really round. It's going to come down like this. And then it's got more of a flat surface, and then a flat surface here. And this is a real flat surface. going to be little bumps and things on it. So it comes around here. And that one surface is really pretty flat. It actually kind of bends in the other way. And then our apple. Let's do this first, though. So this is the pear-shaped gourd. Pear-shaped gourd, which is coming off the edge. So this is where the base is. So the cross contours for this would be something like that. And then they would come around like this. So that's what we need to see. We just have that much. But you have to understand how the form is moving in space. So you can see we've got an axis on that pear like that. We have an axis on the apple like that. And just like the pomegranate, this is, basically an ellipse, but there's going to be changes of direction because it is organic. It's not going to be an actual ball. So there's our apple. And the last thing, well, it's not the last thing. We have the flower pot. So the flower pot, what will happen is it's going to come across flat, and it's going to go down straight. It's going to come in. It's going to angle down. On the other side, it's going to come across. It's going to go down in. And then we have it jumping up because there's the inside part. And then it goes straight down. And then angles like this. And then it becomes less of an angle here as we get towards the center. And again, we have the whole thing. So it would start to change direction here. And then on the other side, it would be like that. It would be like that, if we could see it, which we can't. So something like that. And then we can have cross contour on the inside of it. Cross contour here. Remember, more curved the lower you go, further from the eye level. So now we have our objects. Last thing we need to do is the surface plane. So I'm looking at the surface plane and I'm seeing the edge of the model stand and the edge of the brown paper. And those are horizontal lines for me. So what I'm seeing, if I look at the entire model stand, I'm seeing something that looks like this. So I see horizontal back and front, and then I see angles here, okay? But my still life is about here, right? So I have to figure out, okay, well, what's going to be happening to those angles on the side, all right? These are easy. These are just going to be horizontal lines. So I'm going to come across like that. And as I make these things, I just need to make sure that as I go back in space, that they get closer together, because that is perspective, which you have not learned yet, but you are going to learn. I might be too close together. Something like that. Okay, so we have the horizontal lines, and then we have the angles. And so I'm looking at where the teapot is, and the teapot is probably right around, it's going to probably be a slight angle like this. Then we're going to get more angle this way as we come this way. So then it's going to straighten out about here, and then it's going to come down like this, like this, like this. You don't need to use a ruler for this. It always drives me nuts when people pull rulers out to do this. We don't really need to have that mechanical line quality for this. It's got to be straight, but I mean as straight as you can, humanly make it. It's not that important that it be absolutely straight. Okay? So there you have the cross contour drawing of your still life setup. I'm going to just make sure I have the edges darker a little bit, because we're going to have to trace it, right? So we're going to put it up on our light table, and then we're going to trace the outside contours so that we can then do the value drawing of this. All right, so cross contours, easy.